Would like to welcome you all to our second NAC Ask Me Anything of the fall 2022 semester. My name is Burcin Becerik-Gerber, and I'm an NAC member and a professor and department chair of Astani Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Southern California. So as you know, National Academy of Construction was established to recognize our industry leaders. An important purpose of the Academy is to provide a network system of linkage between past and present participants in the construction industry. As such, we have established this NAC Ask Me Anything to help transfer knowledge to our next generation of construction leaders who are here. And the format of this Ask Me Anything is very simple. So our speakers will make a short presentation about a topic and their perspective on the industry. And if you haven't already done so, please email your questions to nacama@colorado.edu, and I will receive your questions. And one student will win $500 scholarship, which will be announced at the end of this event. So today I have the pleasure to invite and to introduce our speaker, Linda Figg, who is the president and CEO of FIGG Group, an international family of companies that exclusively specializes in bridges. Linda has over 40 years of experience in leadership and management of world-class bridges from concept through construction. FIGG Bridges have received over 435 awards for customers, recognizing economy, innovation, sustainability, and aesthetics, including 3 presidential awards through the National Endowment of Arts. She was named as one of the Engineering News Records top 22 newsmakers in 1998, and Concrete Construction magazine named Linda as one of the 13 most influential people in concrete industry in 2007. In 2010, Linda was inducted to the Alabama Engineering Hall of Fame, and in 2011 was elected to the National Academy of Construction. The NAC noted her vision behind new technologies in bridges that are important to the long-term viability of nations' infrastructure. And in 2011, Linda served as chair of the Construction Industry Roundtable, an advocacy group comprised of 100 CEOs of America's leading engineering, architectural, and construction companies. Linda has numerous awards. In 2014, American Road and Transportation Builders Association awarded Linda the Ethel Bridge Grant Lifetime Achievement Award. And Linda served as president of the American Segmental Bridge Institute 2012 through 2014. She received her civil engineering degree from Auburn University in 1981. And Linda's passion for creating environmentally friendly and functional bridge sculptures has led her to focus on improving the quality of life in communities with landmark bridges. With that, I'll pass the microphone to Linda. Linda, the floor is yours.
Oh, Burcin, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to answer questions, whatever those may be. I wanted to share a few photographs. I'm actually not in my office. I'm traveling today, but I thought seeing different kinds of bridges and what those have meant might be helpful in inspiring some questions. So these are a few that we've done. You have cable stays. This is the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa Bay. And then the Natchez Parkway arches, the largest precast arch in the country. This is near Nashville, Tennessee, in a place called Franklin. It's a 582-foot arch, 140 feet of vertical clearance. And then the Blue Ridge Parkway Viaduct around Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina, which was built completely from the top to protect the environment, because for 30 years they couldn't complete this missing link because other methods of construction would have destroyed the mountainside. For those of you in Colorado who go on I-70 between Vail and Aspen, you've been on a number of our bridges. We have 9. This is the Hanging Lake Viaduct Bridge. And if you like to go to Utah, to Arches National Park, you would see one of our bridges across the Colorado River. The whole mission of this bridge was to have it disappear, because what Mother Nature has created in this area for recreation and beauty cannot be compared to any kind of infrastructure you could place there. So our job was to have the bridge disappear. And then if you travel up to Maine, this is a bridge you won't want to miss. It's the Penobscot Narrows Bridge and Observatory. You can actually go into a state park there on US 1, and it's not too far from Bucksport. And then you can go to the base of the tower. You can enter the belly of the bridge. You can take a high-speed elevator. It takes 44 seconds to get to 420 feet. To the top of the tower is a 3-story glass observatory. It's the tallest public observatory on a bridge in the world. And so from there, you can see 360-degree views of Maine like you've never seen before. It's not just a bridge, it is a destination. And it opens up an opportunity to see the beautiful landscape in a whole new perspective. And if you travel near Ohio or Detroit, Michigan, in that area, this is I-280 in Toledo, Ohio. This is where the glass industry was born in America. And so the community, in working with them to create an iconic bridge, wanted a bridge that had glass to represent their industry. And so the upper 200 feet of this tower is made with glass. We had to invent a new kind of glass so that it could face all 4 sides, and you could have lighting from behind the glass that would reflect a whole array of beautiful designs, you know, at nighttime, and celebrate different events and things during the year. So we worked with the art community to develop those things. And then down in Tampa, this is the Selman Expressway. And the idea here was to double the capacity of the highway, but not use any right-of-way. So really, when we think about engineering and construction, it's also about how we use the land. What is our best sustainable way to maximize the benefit in the least amount of space? So this is about going up instead of out. And the piers are only 6 feet wide. So you double the capacity of this whole highway in only 6 feet. And then in Honolulu, you go out to Hawaii, maybe here's a new excuse to go there, is a transit system. And so the first 10 miles that were done was done in a design build. And then there's a special detail around the pier that celebrates the culture of the Hawaiian people. And so in each thing that we do as engineers or construction, we have an opportunity to make a difference in not only how a facility functions, but also how it's going to look, because it's there as a landmark for a very long time and becomes a symbol of an area and represents really the culture and a sense of place. This is a bridge that's actually in our hometown of Tallahassee, Florida, where there really aren't any bridges, but this is one that is in a park. And it's for people, bikes and pedestrians. And it introduces some new technology. The canopies, which are very good in the hot summer as you're walking across this bridge, also are solar fabrics. It was a new kind of solar fabric that was actually invented for the military when they're in these remote camps with no electricity. But we used it in this case for the bridge to not only provide the shade, but to then take the power of the sun, put it into the grid, and then use it to light the bridge at night. This is a bridge in Virginia. It is in Virginia Beach. It's called the Leicester Bridge. And we worked with the community in developing some design charrettes where the community chose the details of their bridge, the shapes of their piers, the style, the design, the art that was incorporated into the railing. And everything is accomplished with a budget in mind, but it reflects the real spirit of the community. And then this bridge is one of our fairly new ones. It's up in Vermont. It's in Brattleboro. And the mission here was to create a bridge that said Vermont, with the stone look and the opportunity to really see the beauty of nature. And some of you may remember in 2007, there was a bridge that came down on the interstate in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so we accomplished the new bridge. It's the new I-35W bridge. It's a 10-lane interstate across the Great Mississippi River, built during a Minneapolis winter in just 11 months, designed and built. And it incorporated new technology. Over 400 sensors are through the bridge that tell you everything about how this bridge is functioning. It was the first use of LED lights at night. And the gateway sculptures at each end of the bridge incorporate a nanotechnology that when UV light hits the surface of the concrete, it creates a photocatalytic reaction that cleans pollution from the air and is self-cleaning. So lots of exciting things that are now happening in materials and design, and really being able to pull from different industries to create wonderful masterpieces in any kind of design or construction that you might get involved in. So I could go on forever talking about bridges, but I know I'm really here to answer questions.
Wow, that was a great introduction, Linda. It was really nice, and you gave me some hints how to choose some of the questions, because there are excellent questions here, and we cannot cover, unfortunately, all of them. So I'll start with Matthew Kirkman's question. The question is, over the course of your career, what changes have you seen come to the importance when it comes to the importance of bridges and the role they play in our infrastructure and societies?
Wow, that's a big question, because we could probably take days answering that one. But obviously the first point is technology. Really, unfortunately, when I started, computers still had punch cards, and it took like overnight for you to get the results of a very simple program. Today, you can do all kinds of different scenarios in order to refine what you're doing. And it gives us more options, and it gives us the options to use lots of different kinds of materials. And our visualization techniques are different. Now, when you go to design something, you can actually, accomplish it in 3D and explain that to the customer. And a picture is worth so much more than anything that can be explained. And you can use those pictures, those 3D elements to, to also help people build things. That's what we did on I-35W. We did the entire reinforcing cages in 3D and flew cameras through it. And then the workforce would build the rebar on the screen with us and then go out in the -40-degree weather and build it. And it made it so much more efficient. Mm-hmm. So I think those are really the aspects, I think a lot in the technology of computers.
Great. So I'll follow with another technology question, which you answered quite a bit, from visualizations to simulations to calculations. Caleb Tompkins has a question. I think this, if I'm interpreting it correctly, it's about technology in a bridge. The question is, what constitutes a new technology in a bridge? What are technologies practically incorporated into bridges today compared to the decades past?
So, it takes a little bit of time for a technology to gain acceptance before you can actually use it. Sometimes we see technologies today that we wish we could go use tomorrow, but they have to go through certain testing and approvals before they're ready. Mm-hmm. But the things that we're seeing, self-consolidating concrete, we use that for the first time in drilled shafts on the I-35W bridge. That is becoming more and more of a science in the material of that concrete. We can now replace cement with fly ash, which actually increases the strength of the concrete and reduces the permeability of it, which is another thing we were able to do on I-35W. We were able to reduce the CO2 factor by 3.5 tons per truckload. So there's a lot of things that we can see in either admixtures and materials in concrete. They're also using some recycled elements, maybe recycled glass as maybe a feature. We did this on I-35 where we used and created tiles with recycled glass and then exposed it as an exposed aggregate, which made a beautiful design. And that also gave it strength. There's a lot of materials in steel. For instance, a carbon fiber strand. The bridge I showed you in Maine is the only bridge in America that has 3 of its cable stays have an individual strand in each of those 3 that was steel, and it was replaced with carbon fiber and used as a test bed. This is an extra strand, so it's we're able to look at it a little differently to see how carbon fiber functions. The material's great, but the most important thing there is the connections. When you get the connections for carbon fiber in their best performance, that's when it's able to be used in a variety of different installations. You know, I could go on and on about materials, but those are some of the, you know, the key things that I see that have been happening in recent years. I think we will see more in terms of fibers in concrete. There are some that are being used that replace reinforcing steel. You're seeing stainless reinforcing that's being used in some places. So a whole variety of things that are really advancing our industry to allow structures to just live longer.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent answer. And you touched on performance of a building, and there are 2 questions that I'm going to try to combine here, Linda. And they are related to sudden environmental events. And so let me ask the first one, and then I'll follow up with the other one. Malanagud Patil is asking how you make the bridge to stay safe against the sudden environmental events. And then another student, Yi Hang Lu, is asking, what is the secret to standing strong in the path of hurricanes? What is the big difference between the bridges at Gulf and Atlantic coast and other regular bridges?
Well, these are good. These are very good questions. I mean, we have 35 miles of bridges that have been built all along the Gulf and Atlantic coast that have been hit by many, many hurricanes over the years, and we have no damage at all. And those sit next to bridges that did have damage. They were older, different designs, and they suffered. And we had to ask ourselves, what's the difference? You know, like, you know, what is making one perform better than another? One of the things that we found is in our box girder design, which I wish I had a picture of a box girder, but it is a shape that, let's see if I've got one here, that has wings to it, and it's a box shape. Can't really see it here necessarily, but there's a shape that is in a box, and then it has some wings to it. Well, what we found was that when you have that shape and you have a flow of wind or water and it comes up against that shape, it flows around it. It has an aerodynamic quality that allows it to have greater strength. And actually in the European code, they actually factor that benefit, and we don't factor that benefit here in the United States, which gives it some even maybe more residual capacity. But when you have a series of beams, you have that force coming up against the beam, you have a buildup of pressure that's behind there. And that, you know, that connection between one beam to another and how they're all tied together becomes very important. And that's why you sometimes have seen some of the older beam bridges not withstand some of these really aggressive flood, water, wind conditions. Whereas you'll see the box, it will just flow around. So for instance, with the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa, and all of our eyes were focused on Tampa recently, because that's where we thought Hurricane, Ian was headed. We do these wind tunnel studies, and that was one of the first bridges really in the country to go through a special wind tunnel study, where you model the bridge in its shape, and then you put wind through it so you can see all the vortexes and all the different ways in which it would respond. We took it up to 290 miles per hour gusts and didn't have any flutter. So the stability of the concrete is really a dampening effect. So when you get into these very long spans, and you have that sort of extra, weight and stability of the concrete, it does have this sort of dampening effect with wind. And then sometimes in your lighter steel bridges, you have to put wind fairings on it in order to deal with that lightness of the structure. So, we have learned that there are some great ways to take shapes. Like on Skyway, the piers that are holding up the bridge are elliptical shaped, and that reduces the wind drag coefficients around the shape and helps to protect it in a way, or deal with what Mother Nature sends its way. Mm-hmm. We never know quite what Mother Nature is going to do, but we certainly want to do everything we can to protect our infrastructure, during those kind of conditions.
Thank you, Linda. That was a very comprehensive answer. So you mentioned when you were showing pictures, one of your bridges, you said you work with the public and the community, right?
Yes.
And you got them involved. So Grant Moxley here asks, what are some benefits of public workshops and community involvement in bridge building space?
Well, and sometimes, especially with bridges, people get, I would say, sort of emotionally attached to their bridge. It's a connection that sometimes they are using every day, and it becomes kind of like almost like a family member, and you've seen it, like in the case of the Penobscot Bridge, we were replacing an old, 80-year-old suspension bridge that really, they were listening to the acoustical monitoring of the cables, and they were breaking, and they had to shut the bridge down, and it was kind of an emergency replacement. But that was the logo of the community. They loved their bridge. It was their connection to each other and to their work and their dreams and everything. So it's important to get with the community, because now they have to deal with that loss of what their previous bridge was, and learn to celebrate something that reflects them today. And so it is a transition, but it's also an opportunity to do something that is better than what they had. And being able to do the observatory there just turned, their sentiment from, we don't want to lose our old bridge, to the community then going to the DOT and saying, when are you going to get that ugly old eyesore down? And they were to take down the old bridge. So it's very important. I mean, how we work with communities and reflect their interests, because none of us are designing for ourselves. We are designing for others. We're designing to make a difference in their daily lives. And when we're finished, it's going to be there for them. And that's important to recognize.
Absolutely. And we see this not only with bridges, but I think other types of infrastructure as well. So next question is from Luis Delgado. And the question is, during this time of long procurement times and heavy inflation on material prices, how can bridge constructors prepare and adapt?
Wow, that's an incredible question. Our economy is always cyclical. These things happen, from time to time, perhaps almost every 10 years. We go through periods of, where there's really a lack of construction companies and labor and everything in the market to really do what is needed to be done. This happened a lot in 2004 to 2006, and then we might have a market downturn where all of a sudden you have inflation in product and materials. I think it's important that we are very mindful of different ways in which to accomplish projects, and that sometimes means different funding sources, whether you're using bonds with tolls or private funding or public funding. We have to look at all the resources that help to get the job done. And using local materials and designing with the local supply in mind really helps to optimize the efficiency of a project.
Mm-hmm.
And so using that local material, local labor, and maybe in some cases having to train a new workforce in doing a different kind of bridge than they've ever done before. That's easy to do. When we did the Blue Ridge Parkway Viaduct around Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina, that was built by the labor force from the mountainside who had never accomplished a bridge like that before. And so it's an opportunity to expand people's knowledge and to work closely on what those resources are locally.
Great. Thank you also for that answer. I'll move on to a little bit more like personal advice or career related questions. So Cassidy Gilmore asks here, I was wondering if you could tell us about the most challenging project you've ever undertaken and how you approached it.
Oh, wow. I would say almost every project as we're starting it feels like it's our most challenging project because there's different aspects of it that, that we have to solve, right? And as engineers and contractors and in managing these kinds of infrastructure, we do it because we're problem solvers. So we almost want the challenge, right? You want to be able to find the best solution. I would say probably in terms of combining everything all at once in a very tight time frame, the I-35W bridge might be the one that had the most challenges to solve in the shortest period of time. I was just thinking about it recently and going, wow, when everybody went to that job site and, we were all kind of housed together on the same floor, very close to the bridge, no one ever said, we're not going to get this done in 11 months, but when you think about doing a 10-lane interstate across the Great Mississippi River through a Minneapolis winter, 11 months is it's remarkable. And on top of that, the workforce in the area through 3 different shifts during the day, there were no injuries. I mean, it was safe. It was high quality. The attention to detail and to technology was all there, and everybody was working as a team. And so when you can get people from different walks of life who are really passionate about the end goal and achieving something remarkable, you really can accomplish it in a short period of time when people are working together. I would say that one, we also had to, we did a design charrette on that project where we had the community vote on the pier shape, on the railing style, And so, you know, the contractor is like saying, Linda, how fast can you get the vote on the pier shape? Because I got to order those forms. The forms have got to be here. Can you just give me a guess? You know, I'm like, I can't guess what the community is going to vote. You know, you're just going to have to wait. I can give it to you at 5 o'clock. Then I had the vote by noon. I called them and I said, okay, here's the vote. You got it 4 hours earlier. Go. So, you know, but we were still able to engage them. And I think perhaps one of the most special things about that project too is we decided to do an education program with it. And we had 1,600 school kids, and this from mainly is the 6th grade. And each day in one of the labor buildings, we did a course and had all kinds of information, and they took a tour of the site. And then on Saturdays, we did a sidewalk talk because there was a parallel bridge to the new bridge that had a sidewalk on it, and people would meet on Saturday morning, and then we would take tours. There was so many people, hundreds of people came for these tours, so we had to break them up into groups. And later on, I met a student at University of North Carolina. I was there for a talk, and you know, they raised their hand and said, I was one of those students, and that's why I'm in engineering. So you never know what your impact is in the way in which you are sharing what is going on. But we had cameras everywhere so that people could watch and learn and experience. And you know, it was you know, a little bit surreal, but it was amazing what you can do when you bring people together with a common goal.
Oh yeah, I love listening to this question, the answer. I can see the passion in your eyes, Linda. I think you can have an engineer talk about their favorite projects forever.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
Lopez Ramirez asks here, what piece of advice has struck with you throughout your career? Is there anything you would tell to your younger self?
Oh, wow. You know, you get to a point where you wish you could take all the knowledge that you've gained and then go back to college, and then you could kind of rule the world, right? So I think there's a lot of things that if I was, you know, in college learning today that I would do. And maybe these are some of the things that, you know, people are already doing, but I would expand your curiosity and take things that you wouldn't normally take, because it helps you in everything that you do. Whether you take art or dance or psychology, definitely technical writing and public speaking, because when you come up with great ideas, expressing them is the only way they're going to happen. And a lot of times people are visual learners. And so if you can express it in a picture, you can get your point across much faster. I would take anything you can that is offered in new materials, and whether it's in your line of direction or not, go into different schools and take other things that, you know, you're interested in. Sustainability, for sure. Anything that you can do in that regard, and how material is being used. And I would, you know, I would really take anything that allows you to participate in things that give back, you know, early on. Like I know there is Bridges to Prosperity and Engineers Without Borders, things that help you to actually start using pieces of your career, but in a way of kindness and helping others. And I think that is something that we can't have too much of. You know, even if it's one kind act in college each day and something, you know, even simple. I think that it's important that you follow follow your gut, your instincts. Don't overthink things. Follow what feels true to you. I can tell you that the only times that I feel like I've made mistakes during my career is when I was talked into something that I knew in my gut was not the direction to go. So always do that. It will never be wrong because it's what's in your heart. And when you put heart into your work and you dig into it and you research and you advance those things, it will all fall into place. There is a quote that is like one of my favorites that I like to use. It kind of helps to frame, you know, what I think is important that we should do when we're thinking about design. And it's by Buckminster Fuller, who was born in 1895. He was an American architect. He was a system theorist, and he was an inventor and a futurist. And this is his quote that I love so much. When I am working on a problem, I never think about beauty. I only think about how to solve the problem. But when I am finished, if the solution isn't beautiful, I know it is wrong. So when you're looking at something, you have to look at it from all different viewpoints and how it's going to fit and how it's going to look. Because you can do something that looks extraordinary for the same budget as something that doesn't. And that is what is in the art of design. And so pay attention to everything around you and pass your own judgments of those things. Do I like the way that looks? And why not? Or why do I? And, you know, decide to, you know, think about how you would design something in that framework. So I don't know, I could probably go on and on with that, but I don't know if there's other questions.
Yes, there are a few more that I want to ask. Maybe we have time for a couple more. So Kylie Alexa asks, what did you do internally following the Miami Pedestrian Bridge accident to prevent similar accidents in the future? And it's related to Kylie being in an engineering ethics class, and Kylie is curious about your opinion on the ethics behind what happened and the general contractor keeping the road open.
You know, we could probably spend hours talking about that. You know, accidents sometimes happen in construction. They're unfortunate. Sometimes a series of things happens, and when they come together as one element, you have an accident. Nobody wants that. Everyone wants to prevent accidents. And so, you know, it's devastating when things like that happen. Ethics is very important. And I will just say that in particular, engineers should be very careful about talking about things that they aren't knowledgeable about. You know, when an accident happens, sometimes you'll read in the paper, it doesn't matter where the accident is, but you'll find an engineer who looks at a photograph and gives an opinion. That's unethical because you don't know. And if the people who are actually working on a project don't know, how can someone who just randomly looks at a picture all of a sudden becomes an expert, and that expert is like, you know, saying all these things in the paper? So I would be, you know, very cautious about, you know, things that come out too fast in media. I would be very, you know, look at who actually, you know, responds to things. One of the things that happens when you have an accident is that everyone has to go into confidentiality because you don't know. So then there's all these theories that go on, right? And all these questions and all these things. And, you know, is it curious or is it unethical? we really should respect the ethics of only talking about those things that we know about and know deeply about. And so this is probably one of my biggest learning experiences in terms of ethics over the last few years. And I feel like this is an area that is particularly needing in our industry, because we need to always have integrity, and that's the one thing that is really important in everything that you do, and realizing that sometimes doing the right thing can sometimes be the hardest thing that you do. And sometimes that's about speaking, it's about sharing, and having important integrity for how things are accomplished is really important. And you see a lot of things that are unethical and very disturbing when unfortunate things happen. And it also shines a light on the things that need to be corrected in an industry. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I was trying to, because ethics is very, very, very important.
You certainly gave a couple very important pieces of advice there. So you are a leader in the construction industry, and there are many young engineers here in attendance. And I have two questions. I think I'm trying to combine them, related to leadership. So Robert Schneider asks, what goals can new hires set in the first year of employment in order to become an executive in 20 years? And then Juan Lozano asks, as a young engineer, how do you align ourselves to be in leadership positions in committees, work, etc.? I understand these are different questions, but I saw some similarities in them in terms of leadership and aligning yourself or doing the planning to become a leader in the industry.
Well, it's a very good question. And it's something that, as students, you look to how companies are developed or where companies are, and you imagine where you would like to be and what you would like to do. And then you enter the real world of, actually practicing your profession. And it's there that you determine where your heart and your mind is going to enjoy the practice the most. So don't prejudge too early what you want to do, because as you go through it, like for instance, in our company, the first 5 years, people get involved in design, they get involved in management, they go out to the field. We want our engineers to have a field experience before they design something. And that combination helps people realize, oh, I never want to leave from the field. And they thought all they wanted to do was design. Or they are in the field and they come in to design and they go, I want to stay in design the rest of my life. But these are not things that you know immediately. You have to have experiences. You have to have an adventure with your career to know what it is that you are going to most reflect the superpowers of who you are and how you can achieve, certain goals. And it doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Either one can be a great leader, because it's really about bringing people together and creating teams, because teams can create greater products, structures, buildings, bridges than any one individual can. So, a team is what usually designs something. And when you bring in the diversity of that team with different backgrounds and different thought processes, and you watch the magic of a team create a design, that is just wonderful. And there are people who would like to do that forever and never manage anything. You know, sometimes managing things looks a little bit more glorious or fun than it can sometimes be. I mean, the business of the business is a hard road. It's very difficult, but you can learn about that to see if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. And there's a lot of different, you know, things that you know, you can read and explore to see what kind of leadership skills you want to, you know, use in your career. And, you know, I think it fundamentally starts with having a heart of service and kindness, because when you do, everything you do and everything you touch is going to have a good outcome. So, you know, read a lot, learn as much as you can. Don't prejudge yourself too early. Take your time in deciding, you know, what you want to do with that, because things change so rapidly, and you know, new information comes available in technologies and research, and you know, there's a lot of fun that can be had in the careers that you have chosen.
Thank you, Linda, so much. I like how you said follow your heart, and also I think you're saying have fun.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate so much the time that you spent with us, and the openness that you had in your answers. We have to wrap up our session now, and we have a scholarship winner, Kyla Lyons from Oklahoma State University will get the scholarship this time. I would like to thank all of our audience to also that they've been here, and thank you so much for attending. And Linda, again, thank you so much for your time and your insightful answers.
Well, it's such a pleasure. I'm so excited for everyone that is in this stage of your life and your careers and your, you know, education. And if you want to send your address, I would be happy to send you an I-35W book that we did. We actually created these books so that we could help benefit a group called College Possible in Minneapolis. And so I would be happy to send you those books. Wouldn't cost you anything, just something that you could explore and look at.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate it. So this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for attending, and we would love to see you next time.